Okay, hello. A few minutes late. Having some balkiness with the computer. I restarted it. Okay, it looks a bit better now. Can you all hear me? Is this working? Frozen? Let me know in the chat if it's working. I'm kind of doubtful. Okay, so hopefully we've got past the glitch. So yeah, very choppy. Uh, yeah, we'll press ahead. If it freezes or do the same thing again. No, people are telling me it's freezing and lagging. Working. Okay, people are now saying it's working. So this is meant to be the last in the series on Vipassana, working through the path of purification. And this lecture is to be on the realization of Nibbana and how that's dealt with in this scheme of the stages of insight, where the meditator reaches a state of great peace and equanimity and clarity, and the practice just proceeds on its own without effort. And as we noted in that talk, this state of equanimity is normally only the meditator is only normally able to hold it for a limited time, at the most 3 or 4 hours before either realizing Nibbana or more commonly dropping out into the previous stage, the stage of reobservation, which is marked by restlessness. And the proper course of get back into equanimity about formations. Listen. It looks like we're on and off with the connection a bit. I don't know. There's nothing more I can do. I'll just press ahead and hopefully it seems to work. Okay. So the Visuddhimagga has an analogy for what happens in this stage. Is like the and I may have mentioned this in a previous lecture, but it's worth repeating, the land-finding bird or crow. Ancient mariners, when they went to sea, would carry a bird, usually a crow, in a cage. And when they were in doubt whether they were close to land or not, they would release the crow and watch which direction it went. And if it went to the north, and it eventually came back, they would know there's no land to the north. The Visuddhimagga says the mind in equanimity about formations is like this, that the mind will occasionally go out seeking, and if it doesn't find the far shore, which is Nibbana, it will return to its normal state of conditionality. Because you understand that at this stage, the anchor or connection to samsara, to conditioned phenomena, is very weak. So it is possible for the mind to slip its mooring, so to speak, And as in the phrase of the Visuddhimagga, the mind may do that which it has not done since beginningless time, and alight upon non-occurrence. So previously, for how many thousand of lifetimes, every moment the mind is taking an object in the conditioned existence, and then becoming dissatisfied with it and taking another object and another and another. That, in other words, to realize nibbana. Now, what we've got, that's just the basic, straightforward description of what happens. But what we've got in the progressive insight is a series of 4 stages that, well, actually, 4 stages that the mind goes through very rapidly in the process of realizing nibbana. And the write-up in the book by Mahāsi Sayādaw, you may find, if you try to follow it, you may find it somewhat confusing. I think the referencing it with the description in the Visuddhimagga makes it a bit clear. But in any case, you should realize that this, so it really has no practical application in, it doesn't, it's not something that you can actually follow, because it happens in a tiny fraction of a second, going through these various stages. And it relies, the description relies upon the Abhidhamma stages. And the description relies upon the Abhidhamma scheme of the Chitta-Vritti, which is the sequence of stages or processes that the mind goes through when cognizing an object. And this begins with a moment of advertence, moving towards the object, and goes through various processes. This is all in the blink of a second, a tiny fraction of a second, a millisecond. And a key part of this sequence that may go as many as 17 mind moments. And these 4 stages in the progressive insight are all encapsulated within these jhāvana moments. So we're talking about something that happens in a tiny, tiny fraction of a second. There are, first of all, a series of moments that are called vuttana, or emergence, to use the Visuddhimagga translation, the Nyanamoli translation. And this includes equanimity about formations itself, or the final moment of that. And then the mind emerges from that. And the first movement towards nibbana is called anuloma, or conformity. I think Mahāsi calls it adaptation, or the translator of Mahāsi calls it adaptation. The anuloma moment is said to, so it's the first kind of shift. Then there's a moment called gotrabu, which Visuddhimagga translates as change of lineage, which is when the mind actually enters what's called the lineage of the Aryans. So previously, the mind was in the lineage of the worldlings that tied to conditionality, but now it has the real potential of realizing Nibbana, because it's now on the plane of the Aryans. And these series of moments set the condition for the two critical moments of Magga and Phala. Now, this is path and fruit. And this is in Abhidhamma texts and Visuddhimagga, which is largely based on Abhidhamma. What in English is often called enlightenment is usually referred to as Maggaphala. The path moment is the moment when the 8 path factors come together in perfection and translate from the mundane to the super mundane. So previously, how many years or lifetimes we've been practicing, trying to follow the Eightfold Path, but on the mundane level, in the worldly level, Lokya, now we're instantaneously translated to the Lokuttara, or super mundane, or beyond the world level. Which means, what it means in practice is that now everything is aligned to Nibbana, to the unconditioned. Everything is kind of pointing in that way. So the path factors no longer have their ordinary meanings. They're now energies in the mind actively moving towards Nibbana. And then the actual realization of Nibbana is the fruit, the Phala. And in the system described, or the scheme described in the Visuddhimagga and followed by Mahāsi Sayādaw, there can be up to 3 mind moments of. So what it really amounts to is the briefest flash of realizing the unconditioned. And this is a critical moment. It's called a stream entry because one has now entered the stream of Nibbana. And there's no turning back. It's like it's all downstream from here. And the realization of arahantship is guaranteed within 7 lifetimes. And the stream winner can no longer be reborn into any lower state than human. So what this amounts to is, first of all, a very brief glimpse that is almost imperceptible, but it changes everything in the depth. There's a turning around in the depth, and the being is never really the same ever again. The realization of Nibbana is also the opening of the Dhamma eye, in that this is a perfection of view. The understanding is increased. The stream winner can no longer fall into false view, which we have to understand what that means. It doesn't mean a stream winner is infallible. He can never make a mistake, but it means he can never fall into such views as eternalism or annihilationism. They no longer make sense to him. And his faith is perfect because he has glimpsed Nibbana, so he no longer has any possible doubt about the unconditioned, the reality of the unconditioned. So hopefully you were able to get that. I know the video stream has been rather choppy. I can see in the image on my screen that it's sometimes it freezes for an instant and it starts again. That concludes the series on Vipassana, and I'll stay on and deal with some question and answers here. See what's in the chat. Okay, we have one. It has been said consciousness is non-algorithmic and therefore not. I don't agree that's correct. I do hold that consciousness is non-algorithmic. That there's no way to reduce it to a formula. It just simply is. And the other four aggregates all seem to be, at least in theory, reducible to an algorithm. Whether they actually can, they're all, even the material aggregate has subtleties to it that may not be algorithmic. And I don't think we're going to ever see an AI, in my opinion. I don't think we're ever going to see an AI that's truly conscious. Next question. I heard Ajahn Chah said, if you aren't a stream within 6 months or a year within ordaining, you haven't been diligent. What kind of practice did his students do to get these results? I think Ajahn Chah emphasized in the practice that he goal through patient endurance and mindfulness through close attention to the details of daily life. And the actual practice of meditation, in my experience in the Ajahn Chah tradition, they're not very narrow or insistent on a particular type of meditation, but in general, I think the forest Ajahns generally teach anapanasati on the breath, sometimes using the syllable Buddho, and the Ajahn Mahabua emphasis on being centered in the chitta, or the knowing mind. Next question. Thanks for this series. It has been very helpful. The question I have is, the first experience in Nibbana is a glimpse. Does the Aryan eventually experience on a longer basis? Now, each of the four stages of enlightenment is a deeper, more thorough penetration of Nibbana. And when an Arahant has attained, then the possibility is open for entering Nirodha Sampati, which is like a meditation upon Nibbana, or a complete entry into Nibbana. If a crow comes back to the boat, then is this the equivalent of the mind returning to equanimity formations if it doesn't get a glimpse of Nibbana? Yes, that's exactly it. That's what the analogy is meant to represent. Bhante, I went to a Buddhist meetup to learn more Dhamma, but this meetup is like some Japanese Mahayana cult almost. Should I just stop going? Yeah, well, I can't judge on such a brief description. You have to judge for yourself whether it's beneficial to your understanding and your practice. I mean, there are I don't want to judge this particular group because I don't know anything about them, but there are all kinds of both good and bad uh, Buddhist groups out there. Some of them can be quite cultish. I feel dull and sleepy after 1 hour of anapana, but during walking meditation, I'm easily distracted. I generally have an easily excited mind. Do you have any advice? Yeah, if you're feeling dull and sleepy after doing meditation, then you're doing something wrong. I would, first of all, pay attention to your posture. Make sure that you're sitting upright and not slouching. And try and maintain a clarity of consciousness while you're meditating. Don't let yourself drift into that dull and sleepy state if you can help it. And being distracted in walking meditation can be a problem because your sense doors are more open, obviously. But it's said by the Buddha that samadhi built up during walking is very strong, lasts a long time, precisely because it's more challenging. So if you can try and maintain your focus on your object while walking, if you can master that, then that'll go a long way to strengthen your practice while you're sitting. Next one, how to conduct yourself as someone on the path working around tons of people that are not and think you are weird or something, because I don't think all the things they think are cool. Well, you don't have to get into disputing with them. Don't try and don't try and convert them or to criticize them. Just kind of do your own thing, and don't make an issue of it. Everybody's is at where they're at. Does rebirth happen only forward in time? Yes. Yeah, nobody ever suggests it happens backwards. Is it okay to smoke cigarettes? I presume you mean by that, is it a breach of the precepts? No, it isn't. Whether it's okay, that depends on, there's other considerations like health issues and so on. But in terms of the precept against taking intoxicants, the fifth precept, the definition of an intoxicant is something that might cause you to act in a heedless or foolish way. So it's narrower than it's not, it doesn't. Some people take it to mean anything that affects consciousness or affects the mind state. And that's not accurate. There's something like coffee or caffeine. It affects the mind state, but it doesn't make you heedless. Like alcohol or marijuana can make you act in a foolish way. And I don't think nicotine or caffeine fall under that definition. So I don't see them as the same thing. If there's any difference, it's only a small technical one. I've heard some say the glimpse of Nibbana is like absolute cessation for a few moments, like complete unconsciousness. This has always struck me as wrong view. Yeah, I think it is wrong view. It's neither. It is cessation in a sense, but it's not like annihilation. It's a break in the ordinary stream of conditioned consciousness. It's something completely other. Do you have any Theravada connections in South Florida? Sorry, no, I don't. I don't have any connections in Florida. When I do walking meditation, it's much harder to be focused. When I do mantra with extreme speed, it's much harder to be focused. When I do mantra with extreme speed, it overwhelms the thinking mind. But it's common in Thailand while doing walking meditation, texts, memorize paritas and so on. And another would be to practice a body awareness, mindfulness of the whole body moving. Like try to keep your attention on the physical sensation of moving the legs and the arms and the whole body moving. I can slow my breath so slow. I said to slow my heartbeat. I slow my heartbeat down so low with barely breathing. Could you stop your heart altogether? I would not recommend doing that unless you really know what you're doing. I think it's dangerous to play with the heartbeat. And it's not the last sentence you hear. Is that how arhats release? No, it's not. Release their life force. You go to the next line. I'm not sure about that. There is what the question is referring to is something that's mentioned in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, that the Buddha released his hold on the life force, but he did that some weeks before his actual death. But it's like, so it's not like just stopping the heart and dying immediately. What about meditation high up in a tree? Yeah, well, that would be a good place for someone who has a dull mind. This is in the Visuddhimagga, different personality types, different locations for meditation. Someone who has a wandering mind and a mind prone to speculation, being in a high place is counterproductive, because it gives you too much to sort of wander around in. But if you have a dull, constricted mind, being up in a tree is would open the mind. It would be good. It would also encourage mindfulness, because wakefulness, because if you fall asleep, you'll fall out of the tree. And I know I wouldn't recommend trying this at home, but I know some. I've heard stories about monks that were fighting against sleepiness and would deliberately sit right on the edge of a cliff, so that if they nodded off, they'd fall. Is it true that we should have peripheral awareness in meditation rather than be too focused? Because I heard if you narrow check on the breath, you don't have sati, but proper samadhi requires you to also have sati at the same time. What are your thoughts on this? Well, my approach to doing a samadhi, or samatha meditation on the breath, is not to push or focus the mind on the breath, but to open the mind, make the mind receptive, but only pay attention to the breath. So you have to learn the skill of non-attention to other objects. So you're not paying attention to them, but you're also not trying to actively exclude them. You just let them pass away and fade away in the background, but you allow your attention to rest only on the breath. This is subtly different from focusing or forcing the mind onto the breath. That wearies the mind too quickly. For those who don't have access to Buddhist community or meditation teachers, is it realistic to teach yourself meditation from online sources? Yes, it's actually a wealth of sources out there now. I think it's better if you've got immediate human contact but a good second best is books and internet. How was Dharma manifested during the hundreds of millions of years of the existence of the earth before humans? Well, Dharma always existed, even whether it's proclaimed or not. And even before the existence of humans on this earth, there are beings in other realms of existence. Thank you, Bante. Stay warm. Yeah, it is very cold here right now. It was minus 27 this morning, Celsius. Could you talk about the drop of blood in the heart? They said that the Sudamaga is the seat of consciousness mind. Yeah, this is an odd theory. I don't think we have to take that literally. There was generally in Buddhism, but generally in medieval India, and even I think in sort of folk understanding in the East, even today, the physical seat of consciousness is seen as in the heart. The brain was not really. It's interesting that the Suddhimagga doesn't associate the brain with consciousness or mind at all. There's a curious passage in the section on the meditation on the 32 parts of the body. For each of the parts, there's a bit of a description of the physical seat of that part and its shape and its functions. And for the brain, all it says is the brain is a kind of marrow that fills the skull. And that when a person is sick, as with a cold or a flu, this marrow liquefies and drips out of the nose. So obviously no understanding of the function of the brain. In gradual training, it says we should not focus on signs and features as a form of sense restraint. What does this mean? Yeah, this is particularly referring to sexual attraction. You know, when we see, you know, for a heterosexual male sees a beautiful woman, the mind focuses on certain features, the shape and the color, and particulars like the lips or the breast or like that. And if we don't focus on those things, then we're restraining the senses. We're not giving way to sexual desire. With the large population surge in recent history, does this mean heaven's halls get less populated? Is there a finite amount of beings? Well, according to Buddhaghosa, the number of beings is infinite. It's certainly vast. And obviously with the greater number of human beings in the last couple of centuries, they're being reborn from somewhere else, animal realm, hell realm, heaven realm. But I think the numbers are so vast for example, in the animal realm, if you count all the insects and the little creatures in the sea, it'd be unfathomable to be able to count them all. The more progress I make in understanding the Dhamma and the meditation practice, the stronger my feelings are. The pleasant, painful thing are more pronounced. Is this unusual? You may just be becoming more conscious of them, which would be a good thing. In the suttas, the Buddha says samatha and vipassana are results of meditation rather than different practices. What are your thoughts on this from your experience? Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think particularly Vipassana, I always like to, if I'm teaching Vipassana meditation, I always like to make the point that Vipassana is not a particular practice, it's a state of mind. And the practice is an attempt to access that state of mind. And a similar thing could be said about samatha. We're trying to access a particular state of mind, and the meditation techniques are methods to get there. Can we make online donations to Arrow River? Yes, you can. Go to the website, which is arrowriver.ca, Arrow River, just one word, and .ca, and look for the support button, and there'll be instructions on options of how you can make a donation. Is there a link between finding equanimity in non-diversity and subjective sense of time changing? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I don't see the relation point between those two. Maybe you could try rephrasing the question. I heard the Sarvastivada also differentiate between samatha and vipassana. Do they differ on Theravada in any way on this subject? I don't know really. I haven't studied the Sarvastivada in great depth. I'm not sure what their particular teachings of meditation are. I would guess they're probably pretty similar. They're generally, the Sarvastivada and Theravada don't have a lot of difference. Okay, let's take a couple more here, and then we'll call it. Oh, what do we got here? I'm confused as to whether the Asura realm is supposed to be higher or lower than human. And I get the feeling that ancient Indians could decide either. Yes, I think you're right. I don't think the ancient Indians had a hard time classifying the Asura realm. In the Theravada system, they're listed 5 gatis. That is hell, ghosts, animals, humans, and devas, which itself is a gross simplification. There's all kinds of beings like yakas that don't fit into that scheme very well. But asuras are particularly troublesome because they were a type of deva that then fell from that state of being a deva. In the Mahayana schools, they often add in a 6th gati. They give the asuras their own place. In one of the commentaries in Theravada, one of the commentaries says that the asuras can be divided, and the higher class asuras should be counted with the devas, so they would be higher than human. But the lower class devas should be counted with the petas, or ghost realm, so they would be lower. So I think, yeah, your intuition, I believe, is correct. The ancient Indians had a hard time placing that realm. How does Buddhism explain that certain racial groups are more prosperous than others? Well, that would be karma, what group you're born into, and in the ancient Indian context, that would be caste rather than race, and it would depend on your karma. Okay, I think we'll call it quits there and leave it for now. I think the connection looks like it's stabilized, which is kind of a shame. It wasn't stable during the actual talk. And we'll come up with some new topic for next week.